Hello everyone, I'm Melanie with Painting Crafty, and tonight I'm going to be showing you step by step how to draw these poppies, and then I'm going to be showing you how to do a watercolor, a simple watercolor idea to be able to add the color. Now it doesn't really matter once you have the shapes drawn. If you prefer to use a different type of art medium, acrylic paints or colored pencils, guys, sky's the limit. Whatever you want to use, markers, it doesn't matter, because once you have the idea down and the concepts about drawing it or what the flowers look like, you can use anything you want to. So I'm a firm believer, just practice your drawing skills, get better at it, and then that's also going to make you a far better painter as well. So tonight I'm going to be showing you watercolor, and this is the paper that I like to use, the Canson brand. 140 pound is what this is. It's still considered a student grade, which means it's reasonably priced. But I've been using it for quite a few years now, and I really do like the look that I can get with it. If you spend just a tiny bit more money on your paper and then just buy the watercolor you can afford, you're probably going to have a lot better look. You'll have more time to practice. You're not going to feel like it's super precious, that you have to have a work of art every time you use it. So that Canson brand works wonderful for practicing, and actually it's a really nice watercolor paper. I'm also going to be just using some simple materials like just a regular old mechanical pencil. I'll probably be using a gum eraser to lighten up my pencil marks, is what I'll be using to create a lighter pencil drawing on there. And that's about it. I do like to use the watercolor brush, the Princeton Velvet Touch brand. I use normally a 6 round and a 10 round are about the sizes that I use, and I can get quite a bit done with just those two brushes. So let's go ahead and dive right in and take a look. Oh, before I forget, I wanted to say I do have a Ko-fi page, which is rather like a Patreon page. It's just a place where I have a sketchbook membership there, where those who would rather, they don't necessarily like drawing, but they still want to paint, you can pop over there, and I provide all of the tracers for a small fee for all of the drawings that I do on YouTube. So it's also just a great way to support my channel as well. So let's talk a little bit about poppies and what we're kind of looking for when we're drawing a poppy. So if you can kind of see here, the tops of my petals are going to be more of a softer, ruffly look. So I'm going to be creating more of a ruffle look when I'm at the top of my flower. And the way I have them sectioned off is I have it more kind of an upside down bell shape, with it being a little narrower here for my petals, and then they're coming out, and then they're going to be a little bit of a ruffled shape. But the overall flower, if you have it sideways, is going to be larger and then narrower. So you're going to be going for a shape that's something like that, so like a V shape. These look nice if you can have them different directions when you're doing your composition. So this one is facing more towards like the left. This one's facing more upright. This one's got a little bit more of a down vision where you're actually going to see the middle of it, and that's where that dark area is going to be in. It looks kind of fun to have that really contrasty look of the middle. So if you can throw one of those in there, that's going to just like make it look extra special as well. And then this one is just a partial one. Now, when you're doing the little buds, poppies have this unusual characteristic of where they come up and then they curl down, some of them do, and then there's just this little bud that's sitting in here. We don't usually see any of the red or the pink, whatever color your poppy might be. It's more enclosed. And then they have these poppy seeds that are shaped kind of like a U shape, and then they have this little bit of ruffly bits kind of at the top. It's just kind of a seed pod is what it is. Hi, Carrie. Thanks for coming on. And those ones usually go straight up. So these little buds are curved. They're going to have a curve, but the pods usually stand more straight up. So we're going to start with this circle shape and then work our flowers in between. And I'm going to try to keep my flowers within my circles. And I wanted to talk a little bit about color, and we'll get to that part after we do our flowers. But let's start with the flower shapes first. So I'm going to take a look to see where I want to build my flower. And I might just start out with just a regular kind of an oblong circle-ish shape here, just to get an idea of where I want my flowers. So this would be that bigger one that's facing up. And then I'm going to stick one over here, down a little lower. So I'm going to have my round shape there. Again, this is just going to help me decide where I want them. And then I'm going to have another one here off to this side. And I'm going to pop these in. Now, depending on how big you do yours, you might have more room or less room. I'm going to have just 4 big ones and then fill in with some smaller ones. Hi, my friend Gloria. Thanks for coming on tonight. And then I'm going to put one here again. I'm going to fit one, kind of just sandwich it right in there. All right, let's go ahead and build these flowers now that we have my round circle shapes in there. So I'm going to start with this one. And I'm going to choose that my anchor is here at the bottom. So I need to come in and do that little V shape area. So I'm going to make it more of a V, just kind of chisel that shape in. And then I'm going to start with my ruffly bits at the top. So I'm going to have a divide here. I'm going to have a flower shape here, a petal shape here in the front, and then there's one off to this side as well. Those are the ones that I'm going to see in the very front. And then I'm going to create just a little look here, like maybe there's 2 there and then maybe a little bit there. Now this is just very loose flower painting. So you wouldn't even necessarily have to draw those back ones in if you didn't want to. You could just put just a gentle line and then put it in with a stroke of your brush if you were going to be doing watercolor. So here I have this one. I'm going to come up to my side. So I'm creating that V shape. And then I'm going to do a little bit of that ruffly bits at the top, because that's what a poppy look is. I'm going to drop down just a tiny bit, do another little ruffly bit, and then come down. Okay, and then I'm just going to swoop in the back just to show you an idea. So I'm going to do another ruffly bit here, and then another ruffly bit here, and maybe even another ruffly bit here. Now these can even get ruffly, I don't know how to say that word, more ruffy, more ruffled. This is an actual book that I have that has some wildflowers in it. So you can see how these petals are drawn this way, and this one's actually turned all the way down. So the bell is shaped down below. They also have poppies that are double. They're more of a ruffle that's in there, and they have a different leaf on there too. So this just gives you an idea. These little pods are always kind of facing down. This one actually shows you how they, whoops, if I can get that in the camera, have little spikes on there. Let's do that. I forgot to do that. Let's switch it so that we have little me, big picture. There we go. Let's do that. So you can see a little bit how they have little spikes on the plant as well, which carries around on the stem. Now, I don't know if you want to get all that detailed on there, but it's just interesting about how the flower is. But again, it's got the ruffly bits on the top of the flower. So that petal is going to have a little ruffle bits. It's got a little bit more rounded petal instead of a pointy-ish one. Okay, so this is going to come in here, and then I'm going to pop my bottom in, and I'm just going to do a simple little shape that's going to be a little wider here and then come down, and then I'm going to draw my stem down to the bottom of my circle that I drew. Now I did a circle, but you could do any shape you wanted to. It could be a square, it could be a rectangle, it could be a heart, whatever you decided if you want to try this concept of putting the picture inside of a picture. Now let's come over here and let's work on this one here. So I'm not going to see as much of my behind petals on this one. So these are going to be a little taller. This will be my tallest petal coming down. I'm going to still keep with this shape. And then these ones are going to be slightly lower and then down. And that will create that look of that this petal or this flower is tipped going back that direction. So let's work on that. So I'm going to start with my first little ruffly bit here at the top. And then I'm going to come down into that shape of that shape there. And now when I start my next petal, it's going to be a little lower than this one. So, and a little narrower. So this one was my widest petal. So now this is going to be my shortest, and I'm going to come back down to where I start. And then I want to keep it within my circle to carry on that look. And you can actually keep that real strong circle feel if you want to on that side to make it more of like it feels like it's inside of that circle. So this one here, I just continued on with my line of my circle that I drew. You could carry it out too if you want a little bit of a look like that, where perhaps maybe some of that flower goes out. That would be a good look too. I just chose to do it that way. But that would be a good look too, where you could just have maybe this flower out and maybe that flower out. You could try that look too. Okay, so I've got this little one. So you can see now it looks like That middle one is higher, and then these ones are shorter. Now I need to do that the connector piece. So I'm just going to sketch this in. I'm just doing very sketchy movements, very loose drawing for these poppies, nothing too fancy. Okay, so this is the one that's going to have it look like we can see the center. So these ones are going to be lower. These are going to be lower, so they're not traveling up higher. We're going to see more of this back petal here, a little bit over here and a little bit over here. So let's start. I'm going to draw my, so that will just, whoops, maybe we had internet issues today and everybody had the big outage of the internet today. Caused a lot of commotions. Fingers crossed that it stays working. So I'm going to do this like a half circle shape here just to give me an idea of how I want to draw it. So I know I need to, this one is faced probably to this way. I need to probably change my circle shape more to this direction and not so much focus down. Okay, so that might help. Now let's draw, I'm going to draw my little half button shape. So this will give me an idea of where my center of my flower is. These ones are going to be the tallest area here in the back. I'm going to do a little ruffly bits. Again, this is just very sketchy, loose flowers. This is going to be the side of that one over there. We're going to see a little bit over here. Now let's work a little bit on the front ones. So now these are going to come up. I'm going to butt against that bottom of that circle I drew, and you can just kind of fill it in. So this would be the top, off to the side here, just very loose. Okay, so now I have an area where I can set that dark contrast in, which makes that flower look so pretty to have that real strong dark center, nice contrast. Now we're not really going to see that much of the button underneath here, and I probably almost have too much of the button showing underneath this one. I probably should just have all stem, because that's probably what we would see mostly if we're going to be able to see the center. So I'm just going to come up here this time and just make a line for my stem and not worry about that little connector button at the bottom. Now let's work a little bit on this one. I did just put a tiny bit of spot right here just to look. Hi Donna, thanks for coming on. You're welcome. Oh, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. I'm just going to have a little area here, just a tiny bit. This will be the dark area. I'm going to keep an idea of that. This is going to be my V. So that's going to be a V, and then these ones will come out. But I still want to keep with that ruffly bit idea. There's my ruffle. And I'm going to come onto the side here, make a little ruffle. This is very loose. And then in the back, I'm just going to lay some color in there and not even going to be paying too much attention whether or not I have split petals or anything. I'm just going to lay in some color. Now this one here, since it's facing that way, I would see the button more on the back. So I'm just going to do a simple little shape and then bring it kind of in like that. So now I have my big flowers set up. Let's take a look at where it might make sense to put in some pods and some buds. So again, the pods are going to be sitting more straight up, and they're going to have this U shape here where it's going to be coming in and then coming out and around. So it's going to have a shape that looks like that, and then it's just going to have a little kind of a, I just did a gesture of a ruffly bit. Your mind's going to know what it is. It doesn't have to have all the details. And as a matter of fact, it's kind of a good idea to leave some parts that the mind can fill in, and it makes more of an interesting picture, I think anyway. So I'm going to do a U shape here. I don't want it exactly in the middle. That might end up looking too much like a straight line. And so I want to make sure I'm kind of finding a spot that's more off to the side and put it in there. So I'm going to come up here and do that shape off to the side. Okay, so there's my like shape that's more rounded at the bottom, kind of like a horseshoe shape. Maybe that would be a better way to describe it. And this is just going to have a little bit. It's going to have a little connector bulb at the bottom, and then just a line down wherever it might end up, coming right down. Now take a look at your drawing and see where it might make sense to put in a couple of these little pods or these buds. So I was kind of going off of the idea of 3. So like 1, 2, 3 is how I laid them in there. That looked pleasing to my eye. So I'm going to look at that area again. So I'm going to put one here, and these have that little kind of like oh, almond, like an almond shape. That's what I was trying to think of, an almond, but maybe not necessarily so pointed at the end like an almond, but more rounded. And then it's going to have, you need to make it look like it's curving. So I'm going to do that where it comes around. So I have a little bit of a hook, and then just look to see where it might connect at the bottom. This is going to have a little connector piece here at the bottom. You can draw a little line in if you want as a divider for where they overlap each other, but it's not necessary. You can add in more interest with your color. Now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to do my next one over in this area. So then I'd have like 1, 2, and then 3. I'm going to have it pointing more down. So again, I'm just going to start with that almond shape, but then round it off a little bit more so it's not so pointy at that end. And it's just going to have a bottom. Now I want to make sure I have a nice hook on here. So I'm going to come up and then down, give it that real poppy bud feeling. So it's going to have that nice hook. And then we're going to come down like that. And it doesn't look, when I looked at my book, it doesn't look like there's a real strong like cap or anything on these buds. It just looks like they're just hanging from that bit of stem. So there isn't any little caps on there. So I thought that was interesting as well. So anyway, we have that on there. So I pretty much have everything drawn. Now this is the stage where you can decide how much pencil do you still want showing. Hi Deb, I didn't know if I said hello to you when you popped on. How much stem you want, how much of your pencil marks you want to show, how much you want to leave in, how much of the graphite. I'm just going to use my gum eraser, and I'm going to pick up some of my registration marks, my sketchy marks. You can leave in all of your sketch marks if you wanted to, just to have more of a sketch quality to it if you wanted to do that. I'm going to leave quite a bit in there actually. I don't mind pencil marks and sketch marks and seeing where I started. Okay, so I think that's maybe about it that I might be, maybe I'll lighten these up just a tish bit. Okay, there we go. All right, do you think it was fairly easy to draw? You'll have to let me know. Do you think it was an easy concept to grasp about the shape of the flower being kind of like a bowl and having the ruffly pattern at the top of the petal? Is that kind of an easy concept to grasp? I think they're super fun to draw and to paint as well. Now when we start our painting tonight, I'm just going to be using just a simple little student grade watercolor. And if you're new to watercolor, you always want to do a little bit of a color chart because your watercolors are going to look so different in here than they do on your paper. Because of the translucent nature, the watercolor paper plays a big role in what your painting looks like. Now when you start with watercolor, you always start light and then work your way dark. I've heard it explained like you're painting the shadows is what you're painting. So I'm going to start light. I'm just going to start with my reds, and I have kind of a small selection of reds, but you know, poppies have a little bit of orange in it too. So you could actually start with a light orange if you wanted to, and then layer in some of your darker reds. I also have that, I'm kind of addicted to it, is this color right here, is that fluorescent pink. It's so fun to put in things, and it just adds that really pop of color. So I'll probably be using that because I do enjoy using that color a lot. All right, let's start. I might start with a little bit of, let's see if I can't start with a little bit of orangey red and build my color up there. So this is just an orange red. This set is just a student grade, so there is no names of my colors on here, so I can't really tell you what color I'm painting. But I'm just gonna blend that in there. So I'm gonna set that up. I'm gonna mix my colors to about tea consistency. It's always a good consistency to start with when you're doing watercolor. You'll hear other people say tea or milk. Tea means that there's more water, less pigment. Milk is usually more pigment and less water. So I'm going to start with that color. So there's my orangey red. That's kind of more of a darker red. And maybe I want to even pop in a little brighter orange even. Maybe even start a little bit lighter. I like to have a light, a medium, and a dark. So often I'm using at least 3 colors when I'm doing this. I'm going to pop in a little bit of that bright pink. So I'm going to pick up that fluorescent pink. I have a little bit of orange still on my brush, and that's kind of affecting this color. But I want to have a little bit of that in there too. All right, when we go to start painting these, with watercolor, it's great if you can leave a little bit of the white of your paper showing. underneath because those are going to be capturing the brightest whites in your painting. So I'm going to try to leave a few of those showing. I know for sure I want to keep it like in the front petals mostly. If there's something behind here, that would be mostly considered shadow. So it doesn't make sense to leave a bright white back there, but it does in the very front, and there's a glimmer of some white there. So when you're setting in your colors, if you can just leave some whiter spots, bigger actually than what you might think, because you can always fill them in, but you can't bring them back. Once they are covered up, they are gone with watercolor. So I'm going to start with a little bit of this bright orange, and we're going to see what this looks like. And we're going to just layer some in. So this would be called a glazing. Well, I probably would do a little wet on wet, which means that my color on my paper is wet. And then I'm also going to layer in some more wet color of paint on top of it and create a wet on wet look, which creates these beautiful blending of colors on your paper. So there's my orange, my lightest orange, and I'm going to tap in some of this darker orange and let it do its watercolor magic. So I'm going to let that do. Now watercolor is always going to want to travel wherever the paper is wet. So I can keep my water contained or my color contained. It's only going to stay where my paper is wet. Well, I like that look of that color together. Let's see, I'm going to do a little bit more here. Now the ones behind it are going to be a little darker. So I'm going to start with a little darker color. I might leave that. I'm going to take that little bit of a darker color here, and I'm going to tap in a little bit here right away. Let's see what happens. Watercolor is always going to dry a little lighter. I'm going to pop that color in, see where it goes. I'm not trying to cover up everything because I still want to see those layers of the color, because that's kind of the beauty of watercolor, seeing all those translucent colors. Now there, I've got that one done. Let's pop down and do another one. These flowers are so fun and pretty to paint, and easy, loose flowers, and hopefully you were able to, hopefully I explained it well to understand the shape that you're going for, which is kind of the main thing with poppies, is that shape. Now this one I just went ahead and put in my back petals too. I'm going to layer in some darker color right away. This is my darkest red, so I jumped ahead of myself, but I wanted to see what maybe some of this dark red would look like here. And pop that in and let those colors do their magical work of the watercolor. So it's coming together. It's already having lots of beautiful look to it. Now let's start again with some of my light color on this next one. Now you can see from this one, these ones are more red, but I'm going to deepen mine more towards red too, and I'm going to pop in a little bit of pink. Right now these look very orange, but they are a great, fantastic color. And you know, poppies come in this orange. They come in a whole different color. According to that little book that I was showing you, the only color, or they really have bred poppies into being very, very colorful flowers. But the one color they don't have, they said, was yellow. I guess I've never seen a yellow poppy, but they do come in a whole bunch of different colors, I guess. Even ones that have tips of like white tips on them. If you have poppies, put in the comments that you actually grow poppies or that you have poppies. I tried once and I did not have success. I was thinking, oh, these should be easy because they're kind of like a wildflower. So I didn't think I would have too much problem growing them, but no, I didn't get my poppies to grow. So I don't know what I did wrong, but I did not have success with my poppies. They are pretty, aren't they, Carrie? And let's come over here and add this one here. So I'm definitely going to be making deeper red. This is that I popping in my orange color. Now, while this one is still wet up here, what I want to do is I'm going to pick up some browns. And you know, I always say I don't care for my browns in this set. So I'm going to quickly mix up some brown. I'm going to add some black, some brown. And let's see what I can come up with. Okay, now my center's wet. So if I come in now with it, it's not like big puddles of wetness or anything, but my paper is definitely wet. And if I come in here now and tap in a little bit of this dark, it's going to want to travel a little bit. I don't have a ton of what go for milk consistency if you can. For your center, try that a little bit thicker and then tap in your color and see if it doesn't travel a little bit to the outside of that orange color. And I'm just going to take black and I first did my brown and then now I'm tapping in my black. If I can get that close enough. I'm tapping in my black while things are still wet and I'm doing little dots and I'm hoping we'll see if it kind of creates that real poppy look of the seeds, how the poppy seeds are kind of got those polka dotty looks. And I'm hoping that I'm going to get some blending lines like that, how my color just blended out, because it's starting to happen. My color is slightly wet, so I'm getting some of that color to travel into the orange and creating that look of those poppy centers. Okay, fun. I'm going to do that over here too for this one that's kind of facing sideways. And I'm going to put some of that brown in here. Now, if you think about it, you might want to choose a poppy that's maybe your star poppy. Like she is the queen of the show. And whichever one that might be. This one, I might have a competition between these two. I don't know. She's higher, and but this one's got that center. So, but you might want to pick one that's like your star and concentrate more on just developing the one, and maybe have the other ones be less of a show of it. Now I'm going to put a little bit more of this red behind here because I didn't finish those at all. All right, and then I'm going to pick up some more red. This time I'm going to be doing more of like milk consistency. So I want more pigment, less water. And then let's pop some of this red in here and really bump up my contrast. So that first layer was my brightest highlights. This is my next shadow layer. So I'm going to be adding that next color. So I really kind of want to bump up that contrast. So I had a light, a medium. This might be considered my dark, and I want to pop up that color. Now remember not to get it all the way covered up because you still want to see some of those light layers underneath there. Now if you've got so many hard edges on your item and you want to soften them, rinse your brush out, give it a tap on your paper towel, and then push and pull your color a little bit and soften up some of those hard areas. Now I'm not digging deep down into that paper because I don't want to disturb that first layer that I put on too much, but I definitely want to see if I can't soften some of those hard marks so I don't have so many hard edges. And I'm going to come in with some more of that darker red, pop that in there a little bit, and add some of that darkness. Okay, I might even add, maybe I'll mix my two together here. I'll take some of my red and some of my orange that I had, that first color, mix that together more to like a tea consistent milk, you know, pretty thick. And then I can come in and even tap in a darker bit of that red. I really want this flower to really pop and have some contrast in there. But I don't want my back color to be the same as my front color, so I need to make sure I'm adding, you know, what's the difference? Well, the difference is that my front one has, my front petals are very complex. They have a lot of color on there. My back ones just mostly have red on there is what they have. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of that bright pink too, because I was saying I really wanted to add a little bit of that in there. I'm going to add some of that in there. It's got a little bit stronger consistency. My colors are still wet, so it's not like I'm going to have just this bright pink blob sitting in there. But I might see some blushes of that color in there, which I think I'm going to see, which is going to be super pretty when it dries. I can get some of that pink to show in there. Okay, let's come down here and work a little bit on this one. So again, I'm going to be mixing my reds, getting a darker on this one. This one was kind of more of the front petal that we were seeing mostly of. And then the ones behind it, or they're going around my flower. So this is going to be darker here. And adding that in. Now, if you're using colored pencil, which I know some of you are that are watching, you enjoy using your colored pencils, you could let all of this dry and then come back in and do a little bit of detail work with your colored pencil and add the texture in that way too, which would be another fun look to do. So there's lots of ways to do this. I know some of you like to use your gel pens, a little bit of glitter. Always looks nice. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and add this color here. I like the way that center bled out and into my other colors. I think that looks great. Now this little gal here, I think I might just use just a tiny bit more color on her, but I'm not going to spend a lot more time on her. She's just a little side pretty thing is what she is. I think I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that bright neon pink over here. And let's tap a little bit of that in here too. I have it, I like it, I love to use it. I love to use that bright fluorescent color. It's my favorite one. I don't use the other ones that often, the orange or the yellow. I don't use those that often, but I do enjoy that little one. Okay, so there are my flowers, pretty much done. Okay, now let's go ahead and look at my greens. Now I do have this other set over here, and I do like this kind, it's called Hooker's Green. I like that color green. It's got a little bit of gray in it, and I might cheat and use it, although I could use what I have. Let's see, keep to the student grade, since I said that's what I was gonna use. Stick to my colors and not go too far. Okay, so this is kind of a bluish turquoisey green. And I can tone it down either by adding a little bit of red to it, and that would make it a little bit more gray. I can add some of that color in there. And then maybe I could mix my own green. Come up with a little bit of a bright green and mix my own color. Okay, that works. So you can play around with your colors too. Watercolor mixes just like acrylic paint does. Now, when I did my little greens, I tried to leave a little bit of a highlight, you know, like there's a little highlight there. Those are the bright whites of the paper. So I'm going to try to do the same thing here. If I can cast a little bit of white, I'm going to try to. Ooh, this is very light pigmented. Not a lot of pigment, mostly water in here, it looks like, or feels like. So we'll see. I might have to darken it up yet. Usually with even with this being like they're not the primary show of my painting, these little greens, I still like to have a little bit of color with them. Now, because this color is green and we're butting up against red, if it's too wet, you might see an area that ends up being kind of real brown looking, but you have to kind of be okay with that, or my green might bleed up a little bit into my red because my colors are still wet a little bit. But I think the color would still be fine, even if I'm going to just follow. I'm using a number 6 for this. That works pretty good for this type of size of painting. If I had a smaller one, I might even use that. I might have to add more pigment to this because this is really washy and it might not show up. And once it dries, it could look pretty pale. I'm just going to follow that in there. Okay, I'm getting some cool looks. I'm also seeing where, you know, like my green is running into a little bit of my red, but I like it. I think it looks good. I'm okay with that. Let's maybe add a little bit more pigment to this. So let's remix. Let's do a little bit more mixing. So let's see, I'm here with this color. Let's add just a little bit more, maybe just even a little bit more of just the teal color and see what color we end up with. Let's tap a little bit of that in there. See what we end up with. It's an experiment. And often, you know, if you do these paintings and drawings more than once, it's not a real time-consuming painting. You can do it fairly quickly. And I guarantee you, if you do it more than once, you're going to learn something. You're going to figure out something from the first one you did and be able to change your next one. And it's kind of interesting, you know, to change just maybe 1 or 2 things and then just see what that does to the overall feel of what you just painted, and see what the subtle changes are that you might make with changing just one or 2 things. Now this picture is, it's still wet, so I'm gonna need to dry this real quick. Whoops. And for the background color, if you're gonna choose to do the circle one, if you're gonna choose to do it, why I chose the color that I did is because it's a greenish blue color, and that's going to be, the green is going to pop those pictures or the poppies off the paper more by having just a tish bit of the green into my background. Now, if you do more colors that are next to each other, so like if you did the if you do the flowers, and I know my friend Carrie loves to use purple, but maybe a good place to use purple, Carrie, would be in the center here, like a darker purple. Oops, the internet is so weird. I apologize if I'm cutting in and out. You might want to try laying in some dark purples there, maybe even a blackish purple or a brownish purple. And then maybe trying some other color in the background to see if you can complement the reds more. But if you go with a purple background, it's going to be more neutral. Like if you choose a color that's next to the reds on the color wheel, like an orange or the pink or something like that, it's not going to pop off the paper as much. So that's why I chose to use my bluish or my aqua color, which is this color right here. It comes in that set. It's one of my favorites. It's got a big hole in it. I'm going to wear out of it before I'm happy about it. And of course, this set, you can't buy tubes of this color. So I will have to replace it eventually with another color that I just love and I can't live without. So this paint doesn't come in tubes. So that's the bad thing about buying a set that doesn't have a replacement. So I'm going to choose this color here and I'm just going to go right in, follow my circle shape. And I like to change the direction of my brush, not to keep it so the same way, because I don't mind seeing a little bit of brush stroke. Well, actually a lot. I don't mind seeing the brush stroke work in the background. Now my colors are pretty fresh, so I don't want to get too close to those colors because I would have it all running into my background. If you want to let yours dry more, you could easily let yours dry more before you do this part. But since I'm doing it live, I'm going to just push right through it here. Okay, and I'm okay with seeing some white even close to my items. I don't mind seeing that look at all. I'm going to skate in and around. Now the green down below is not that big of a deal if my color bleeds and softens up and goes into my background. That will be fine and it'll probably actually look pretty cool if it does. But I don't really want my reds to go into my background. And watercolor at this stage particularly, since we just did it, it's not going to be react very well to a lot of scrubbing or a huge amount of water next to it. It's going to want to flow right into those colors. So I'm just going to be real careful, scoot around, be quick, and get my areas done. Okay. Ooh, isn't that already pretty? I just love how that color pops right off of there. Now you could let this dry, do another layer, which is what I did on this one. I let that background dry and then I put another layer of my blue on there. So you're going to want to let your colors sit to see what they happen. Again, if you get really hard lines in your background, well, I can see a really hard line here. I could come in and just scoot that around a little bit more before it gets too dry. And there is a point of getting too dry. And once it gets to that point, you don't really want to mess with it. You want to let it dry and then put your next layer on. So I would let this dry, and more than likely I would put a second layer on there. This might look really fun too, as if you had a poem or a scripture verse, something like that. If you wanted to put that on the outside, that would look beautiful. This would be beautiful framed with a lovely frame on it. It would make a perfect gift for a friend, I think. Or if you have a cubicle, you work at an office site, to hang it up in your office area and have it, or put it someplace where you can see it every day for a while. I'm going to continue on with a flower of flowers for the month, for a few more weeks at least, of doing a flower series. So the next one I was working on today were pansies. So I'm going to be doing pansies next. Those are going to be up, and I'll probably do those next Thursday as well. So that is it, my lovely friends. Thanks for popping in for a quick art break with me tonight. I'll be back again live. I'm going to go live again on Tuesday for sure. There's a possibility that I might start going live on Sundays on YouTube and maybe mix a few little acrylic paintings inside of there. Let me know if that's something you'd be interested in doing along with me, some acrylic painting. I usually stick to watercolor, but you know, I've got acrylic paints, and I've been watching some things, and it's making me itching to do some acrylics as well. Hello, Judy. Thanks for coming on. Yeah, so the replays will be up. You'll be out. If you don't subscribe to my YouTube page, if you wouldn't mind subscribing, I'd so appreciate it. I have just a little baby page and just starting out. So anytime you leave a comment or you watch it again, if you so watch it again, that just really does add up. And I so appreciate your support for me. Come on over to YouTube. It makes my heart so happy to see all your names pop up. You have a good evening. And oh, by the way, if you do one, if you do draw one and paint one, you can come on my Facebook page, which is also Painting Crafty. Pop it underneath the area that says about tonight's drawing. And I love to share your work too. Hi, Joni. You'll have to watch the replay. Yes, you'll have to watch the replay. Do please. All right, good night, my friends, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Bye now.